Over the last week, it's interesting. Forget last week, just general statement. Something that I find interesting in life that I encounter is I see a lot of people going through very similar things, or similar things popping up in people's lives. People that I know are all hitting on some of the same concepts and ideas at the same time that others are. Things that I'm thinking and saying, I hear other people also saying, like butterflies. I was talking about butterflies a few weeks back, and it's not just the Facebook algorithm, but all of a sudden I noticed, as I was thinking about butterflies, many of the people that I know and the pages that I follow were also thinking about butterflies and posting about butterflies. And it wasn't that one or the other necessarily had seen something about butterflies and was like, oh, I'll post about butterflies. It was that we all were reaching the same point at the same time. These concepts, these thoughts. We each have our own individual mindset that we have, but there is also a mindset that runs between each of us as humans. Those of us who have similar minds, our minds, I believe, connect to the energies around us. And we may think the same. Much like if you think of think of humanity as being like a body, like this body, the body of humanity. We have our individual bodies, we also have the body of humanity, and each of us has a function. Each of us has a point, a reason that we're here, something to do, something that we enjoy, something we specialize in. And just like the nerves transmit the thoughts along, and muscles transmit thoughts along and things like that, the senses work together to let the body know about things. In the same way, that stuff happens among humans, among the different parts of the body of humanity. We start thinking the same things. We start moving in the same rhythms, the same concepts, the same thoughts, the same inspiration and ideas. Another one that I've seen hitting all at once is love. All of us just learning to love each other and get along and put those differences aside, to strengthen each other, to unify, to build each other up and lift each other up and help each other to become more. The idea of only one can have it all is part of the problem with the world today. That 1% that has almost all and still thinks they have to have more. Nobody needs all that these billionaires have. They don't. What happens when all of the world is destroyed and everybody's gone, but they've won, they've gotten to the top? What joy will there be when there's nobody else around? Not much. I would rather be in a world where everybody works together to lift each other up, to help each other, to build each other up, to heal the wounds and help those who are struggling, than to be the one or one of the few who is on top with everything while everything and everyone around me is dying. This is not how things are supposed to be. Just like when the cells within our body turn against our body with things like being immunocompromised, or things like cancer. When our cells turn against ourselves, our cells turn against our body starts attacking itself. We're seeing the same thing happening right now in our society, and we can't have this. A body that is constantly attacking itself. Well, we all know what happens most of the time when people get cancer. Yes, the cure rates for cancer are going up. They're definitely a lot better than they were years ago. But the cancer in society that is destroying society right now is willful ignorance. And I think willful ignorance is the cancer from which all other evils flow and all the other evils come. Greed, big its, and eight, and phobias against people and groups, and superiority complexes. My group is superior to everybody else's. These all stem from ignorance, willful ignorance. Because if people took the time to learn, to listen, to grow, and to open up to the things that are around them instead of pulling in. Only me, I can only be me, nobody can have anything but me, nobody can be anything but me, I must be the best. Really? Really? No. You're a cancer. Sorry. Bye, cancer. That comes from willful ignorance. And I don't say that flippantly, because I was one of those at one time who had that issue with willful ignorance. I'm right in all my ways and all my thoughts, and I know the truth when nobody else does, and because this person told me the truth and that person told me the truth, and they must be right? They wouldn't lie to me. But they did. And it wasn't until I started studying and learning to become more, to become better, that I began to see the holes in the arguments. And one of the things that I had done was actually I went out one day to try to disprove something that I was hearing. No, that can't be true. That can't be true. I'm going to go prove that I'm not wrong. And instead of just going to one or two sites that confirmed my opinions, I started listening to a lot of different sides, a lot of different people, a lot of different arguments, a lot of places that were giving facts and not just saying, well, this person says this is a fact, so it's the fact. I started going to the sources. The instead of saying, John Blum says this, I went to John Blum and said, is this what you said? And John Blum is like, no, that's not what I said at all. Who said that? Metaphorically speaking. And that started my process of figuring out how much of the things I had been told were the truth, were not. And through that process of stepping out of myself, stepping out of only looking at myself and me and starting to say, how does it look from the other person's perspective? If this is my view, what happens when the table is turned? What if it's reversed? One of those things was with regard to people who immigrate. We've all heard people say, this is such and such country, and the language that this country speaks is this, and people who come here should speak our language. And I said, I had agreed with that. Sorry. But when the time came for me to go somewhere else, to another country, where they didn't speak the language that I was used to, I would hear many people who would go to those other places and then be angry because they weren't speaking American English there. And sitting there saying, well, wait, you can't expect them to come here and speak American English if you're not going to go there and speak their language. You can't get mad at them for coming here and not being able to speak and wanting to be spoken back and be able to engage in conversation in their native language here when you won't go there and engage them in their native language. That was a turning point, and I did go and spend time in another country, and I did use my best to try to speak their language and communicate and grow my vocabulary while I was there, to be able to engage in the language. Spanish. I went into to Mexico for a couple of weeks, and I had some background in Spanish as a child, and so I tried bringing that up and speaking as I could and learning how to converse more, while the other people, I went as part of a group, the other people were, if they weren't native Spanish speakers, they would sit there and wait for somebody else in the group to translate. No attempt to engage with Spanish-speaking people in their native language. They still wanted to be spoken to in English or have somebody translate for them. And I'm sitting there saying, if I'm going to expect them to speak English in the States, then I should be speaking Spanish when I'm in Mexico. That was a huge change for me, and that was a breaking point where my willful ignorance began to fall apart, and the treatment of my cancerous willful ignorance began. Trying to figure out how I got off on that, the willful ignorance. And the cancer attacking the body, the body of humanity. Yes, that's how I see. This is all off the cuff. It just flows, and sometimes I lose track of where I was. But so willful ignorance is a cancer, and it's becoming a huge problem in our world, and we have to address it. We have to address it. Because the body of humanity will not survive as long as the cancerous, willful ignorance is eating away. When our world is being torn apart by greed and hate and prejudices of all kinds and phobias of differences, we have to learn to embrace our differences. You know, I've got hands and I've got feet, and they all have 5 digits on them, but they do different things. There are similarities, but they still function differently. Doesn't make one better across the board than the other. It doesn't. There are things that I will never be able to do with my hands that I can do with my feet, and vice versa. What about our senses? Our sense of smell is not better than the sense of sight, or hearing, or taste, or touch. None of them are better than the other. Each has a specific function. And if my eyes are telling me that something is pretty and nice, but my nose is telling me that doesn't smell good, and my sense of touch, temperature, tells me that is an extremely hot item, it would not be right or sane for my eyes to say to the other senses, you don't know what you're talking about, we're going to grab it anyway. get with it and grab that glowing orange thing. Because the eyes know better than the rest. No. Just like the senses of our body, we all have to work together to build, to make better, to heal, to help. You know, if my leg has an itch and needs to be scratched, but my hand and arm refuse to help out, there's a problem. Or even worse, if there's a cut and I'm bleeding, and my hand and arm say to the leg, "You're not that important. We don't even like you. So we're not going to help you out." There's a problem, because the whole body will suffer if that bleeding doesn't stop. I could no longer be alive after a while. There could become infection, and then the leg may not even be there anymore. And how would that help me? How would that help the rest of me to lose that part of me because one part of me didn't think that something was right? I know a lot of people have affinities for feet. You know who you are. I'm not one of them, although sometimes with the things that I will say, it might give that impression. I love fun and unique shoes and socks. If I'm going to have to put things on my feet and not be able to go around barefoot, I want it to be fun. Just like clothes. If I'm going to clothe my body, I want to have fun. I personally tend to think that the feet are some of the lesser attractive things on bodies, but we all have things that we like and things that we don't like about bodies. And if there's a part of the body that you have a particular feeling about, that's great, whether it's positive or negative, but recognize there are also other people who feel the opposite as you. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with those differences. There are people who are attracted to very large people, large in circumference. There are also those who are very attracted to those who are abundant in distance from the ground. Conversely, there are those who tend to be more attracted to adults who are closer to the ground, or less in circumference. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people like big muscles, some people like small muscles. Doesn't make one wrong or right. There are different attractions. We like different things. We think different ways for different reasons. And one isn't necessarily wrong over the other unless it's destroying the other and endangering the other parts of our body, the body of humanity. And so this idea of loving each other and caring for each other and taking care of those of us who are around us, lifting people up, as I'm seeing these similar thoughts run through spontaneously through the same groups and the same people that I am associated with at the same time they're occurring to me. This makes me happy. It gets me excited to see growth, unity, to see people connected to each other, building each other up, lifting each other up, encouraging each other, making the world a more better, kinder, happier, healthier place for all of us. I love this and I want to see more, because each of us has a purpose. Each of us has a reason that we are here. And it's different for everybody. Each of us have different things that we like. think of music. There are so many different styles of music. And there are types that people like. There are types that people don't like. But just because you don't like a particular band or genre of music doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't think that is the best there is. And your favorites might be somebody else's least favorites. Those who like cats may not like dogs, and vice versa. But there is difference, there is diversity, there is our differences for a reason. For a reason, because we're all different, and the different parts of our bodies, the different parts of the body of humanity function differently for that reason. Why are you here? Why am I here? We, just like I said with the things that we love, the music, the arts, other things, styles of movies. Our differences don't make us bad, they make us stronger. Imagine if there was only one genre of music and it was the music type that you didn't like. Or if there was only one type of genre of film and it was the kind that you liked the least. Or only one body shape and it was the exact opposite body shape or style as what you liked. That would be really lame. There are reasons why we have the differences, and the differences are not bad. The differences are not bad. We need to embrace those, not only in others around us, but in ourselves. Learn to accept those differences and love those differences within ourselves. Those are lessons that I have learned too. There are things that I have been very uncomfortable with about myself. And seeing those things that I was uncomfortable with or afraid of or whatever in others reflected back on me made me uncomfortable. But once I learned to be unafraid and actually looked at and embrace who I was, without listening to people tell me, oh, this is right or wrong or whatever. Heresy! It's the demon of secret sauce. Cast the spirit of Wendy's and Hardee's out of him. Arby's. McDonald's. But I know there are people who like McDonald's. That's not one of my favorites. Anyway, different religions, same things. Because different religions have different thoughts and different ways of presenting things. Not only our world, but what comes afterwards. All of them have truth. All of them have garbage. But all of them have ways that help the individuals, the practitioners of said religion, be able to embrace themselves and the world around them. And that includes those who don't have a religion. Those who are atheist or agnostic and don't believe that there's a God. There are reasons that we are the way that we are. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not something to fear, it's something to embrace. I was raised with several different religious philosophies orbiting around me, all of them saying, well, we are the only truth. And how can they all be the only truth when some of them take the exact opposite stances on some of the same issues? This is the only correct choice. No, this is the only correct choice. I have learned enough to know and be able to honestly say, I know I don't know everything. I think I'm right in a lot of places, but I also know that even in some of those places I believe I'm right, I'm probably wrong. That's a huge step. That's a step not everybody can take. Can you make that? Can you make that claim? Can you? I hope you can. I hope you can. And this is part of where my different coaching programs are going. They all have a similar, even with different focuses on the things that you want to do, that you want to accomplish. Many of these, all these ideas that I've talked about as specifics: learning to be comfortable in your skin, learning to be comfortable in front of others, learning to love and accept yourself for who you are and how you are. These are all things that I've fought with, and these are all things that mesh together. Learning what your purpose in life is, and our purpose, the things that bring us joy and excite us, will change through our lives. You know, the things we wanted to do when we were 5 are not things, probably not the same things that we want to do when we're in our 50s or 60s or whatever. Our views on life, the things that bring us happiness and fulfillment, change. And there is nothing wrong with that. It is part of life. It is part of growth. If you're feeling lost and looking for direction, know that you're not alone, and that help is here. And we'll be opening up, as I said earlier, we'll be opening up a limited number of coaching slots very soon at significant discounts as I get this program launched, and these various programs launched, and start trying to do more to help make the world a better, happier place, and to make your world and your life a better, happier, more fulfilling place. Because I love you. I believe in you. You are entirely valid as you are. You are worthy of all the good things that life has to offer. Of love, of having enough, of support, of all the good stuff, of all the good kinds of Mishaguyas, the good kinds of craziness and silliness and nonsense, and not the bad kinds. You are a beautiful and wonderful soul, and I am very glad that you are here and are joining me along in this journey. And I will see you more in the coming weeks and in the coming days, and maybe even in the coming hours on the internet. Mishaguyas.